Live from the Bob Levy Broadcast Center overlooking the Toms River, it's time to get up, get out, do something. Wake up with Jeremy Grunin. Be a part of the show, 732-505-1160. News Talk Radio WOBM AM 1160 and 1310. Listen online at WOBMAM.com.
Hey, welcome back. Wake up with Jeremy Grunin. It's 6:08 in the morning, Tuesday, May 17th, 54 degrees. Get up to 64, 50% chance of rain today. WOBM AM 1160 and 1310. News Talk Radio. Streaming live on the Radio Pup app and WOBMAM.com. 732-505-1160 to join the conversation. Conversation now turns to STEM and other technologies in our classrooms. We are joined by Leading Engineering Technologies, Cheryl Matthews and Bill Reinhardt. Good morning, folks.
Good morning.
Jeremy.
How are you?
I'm telling you what, I'm so excited when we get two people to actually come in here at 5:30 in the morning to like ring the doorbell and say, please let us in. That's great. So thank you so much for joining us. And I know, we try and kind of theme our days, although I'm not going to lie, we're all over the board with that. So Tuesdays typically was our education Tuesday. And so what better to talk about in education than STEM and how technology is having an impact on our classrooms. So before we get started, why don't you kind of tell us what it is that you guys do? Because I'm going to guess that close to 100% of our listening audience has no idea what Leading Engineering Technologies is. So go ahead.
Great. Thanks, Jeremy. Well, basically, we are a distributor for half a dozen companies that have products for engineering education and also STEM. STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and math. And it's really the way that the workforce carries themselves out in a daily basis. When I go to work, I don't do a half hour of math and then a half hour of science and then a half hour of engineering. I use all my brain power at one time to solve problems. So we're bringing these STEM labs into the school system to help students become fully hands-on, minds-on in solving real-world problems.
So you don't wear half a raincoat either then? You wear the whole thing?
I wear the whole thing.
Gotcha. It's embarrassing how much of a raincoat you would wear. Okay.
And the other important component of STEM is the kids work together. They work in pairs. You're working with Zach right now.
Right.
So you're a team. It's the same thing. They collaborate and they work together to get their end product.
Now, does it work like Zach and I do? Because Zach totally carries me.
You have a love fest that is unlike any other.
It really is beautiful. And although he didn't invite me to his housewarming, there's a whole separate set of issues going on here. So why don't you tell us, give me an example. What's one of the product lines that you're very excited about, or something that you kind of find yourself dealing with every day when you're talking to schools and classroom situations? That's
great. My favorite by far is Creative Learning Systems Smart Lab. Just to take a step backwards, when I was in high school, my dad recognized that I had an aptitude for science and also for math, and he encouraged me to be an engineer. But I had no idea why I was going to college for engineering. I just went in faith of my dad and pursued an engineering degree at Lehigh. What the STEM lab does from Creative Learning Systems, it enables students to experience some of those career paths and some of those career choices at a much younger age. We have a lab that's scaled for kindergarten through 12th graders. And some of the things that they might experience in the lab is they might work with a Lego robot, or they might create digital music using a product from Sony, or they might do software engineering and create an app for a cell phone. We have over 360 products or projects in 60 different content areas, and the students really use their creativity and their imagination to engage with this technology and create something meaningful.
And the thing about a smart lab that the Creative Learning Systems provides is it's a turnkey situation. We bring in the desks, we bring in the computers, we bring in the curriculum, we bring in the software, the probeware. It's really, I hate to say one-stop shopping, but it's not like your STEM coordinator has to go out and purchase from 20 different companies to implement a STEM lab. We come in and we supply them with the entire STEM lab. There's a school in Pennsylvania, it took them almost 4 years to put a STEM academy together, and it's something we can do in 2 weeks.
Right, so it's a STEM classroom kind of in a box.
Yes.
Yes.
Right.
You give us an empty room, and 2 weeks later, we give you everything that you need, and we teach your facilitators how they're going to instruct the students differently, because one of the key philosophies is that the student is the worker in the lab. We no longer have a teacher up front teaching the students. We have a facilitator in the lab that's guiding the learning, but the student is actually the worker in the lab creating the project and doing the work.
Right. And at what age do you recommend, or what age is recommended that kids start being kind of indoctrinated into this kind of learning?
It depends. I mean, this program can start at kindergarten, but the kids are playing with Legos at 2. I know my son was building Legos at 3, and I step on him every morning in his room to this day.
Legos, not your son, right?
Not my son. No,
I was just
he gets out of my way now because he sees
because it wouldn't be the first time we had to call DIFUS on the show.
Sorry, Bill.
I just wanted to make sure.
Sorry, Bill, but they're so good with their hands and they're so smart, and the Legos comes with directions. He could just build, and it's the same way in a STEM lab.
So you're saying that Legos are STEM? Because listen, so my idea of STEM is this super cool robotics thing, or doing this computer animation type learning thing, but STEM is more than that, right? I mean, STEM is really working with Legos, or working with a lot of different building components, and really just kind of working with your hands, right?
That's part of it. One of the things that Creative Learning Systems does that makes us a little bit unique is that we consult with subject matter experts so that we link rigorous academic content to the projects. So they're just not building a Lego like they would at home. We're actually linking the academic content, such as simple machines, and what is a simple machine, and how does that create a mechanical advantage and enable us to do work easier. We're helping the students make those connections to their academic classes. We're also helping students become self-directed lifelong learners. We want to teach them where they can source information, where they can find tutorials to learn how to do a new type of technology or a new project. We want to help them learn to be better learners, to think critically, and to plan their time, and to create a project timeline. And every day they're going to journal, what did you do, what did you learn, what problems did you encounter, and how did you solve them? So they're really evaluating their learning process and reflecting on it.
And that's one of the things with STEM and schools. Sometimes a school, we'll ask the STEM coordinator, do you have a STEM program? And they'll say, well, we do STEM projects. We've had teachers say the kids built a bridge out of pasta, and they'll say, so that's our STEM for today. And our question is, okay, so they built a bridge out of pasta. What did they learn? Did they learn about load bearing? Did they learn a budget? I mean, there was no curriculum behind it. A kid can make a straw rocket, but unless you're looking at trajectories and thrust and things like that, it's not really STEM.
Right.
So.
Well, I think that they also would have learned that penne makes a much better base than fusilli.
Yes,
because
do not use angel hair.
Yeah, because angel hair. That's
yes.
really you could use that for the suspension pieces, but I don't know
exactly.
I mean, it could have just been you're taking for granted that it could have actually been a teaching about pasta. I mean,
if it was a cooking class, yes.
Yeah.
The last time I looked around, we don't have any bridges built out of pasta that I'm willing to drive over.
That's true, but
some are as fragile right now.
I've never been to Europe. Okay, when we come back, because we're up against a break, when we come back, I would like to talk about robots, because I saw probably the coolest presentation I've ever seen from you guys of a robot that folks could use actually in a hospital setting, but I know it also has a lot of applications with schools, et cetera. So can we talk about that? Because the technology is unbelievable.
Absolutely.
Cool. We are here with Bill Reinhardt and Cheryl Matthews. Leading Engineering Technologies is the company, and lots of cool stuff to talk about. Wake Up with Jeremy Grunin after this.
Everything you need to know about the Jersey Shore. This is Wake Up with Jeremy Grunin. News Talk Radio, WOBM AM 1160 and 1310. Make a difference at the Jersey Shore. 732-505-1160. Wake Up with Jeremy Grunin. News Talk Radio, WOBM AM 1160, 1310, and WOBMAM.com.
Welcome back. Wake Up with Jeremy Grunin. We are here with Bill Reinhardt and Cheryl Matthews of Leading Engineering Technologies, and we're talking about STEM and technology in our classrooms. So we kind of touched on, for a second, around robots. So I saw, like I said, I saw this coolest presentation of a robot. It was actually at a local hospital, and what the robot could do for patients that were theoretically, being discharged and could help them as kind of like companions to help them make sure they take all their medicine, et cetera. But I know that its primary purpose really was more in an educational environment. So why don't you tell us a little about that?
Sure. The robot's called NAO, N-A-O, and it for educational purposes, it works great with disabled children and kids with autism. Studies were done at University of Notre Dame and Vanderbilt, and they find that technology is something that kids with autism will interact with more readily than with a teacher. So we've actually placed a few robots in special ed schools in New Jersey. And, in that vein, it's been a wonderful experience. And it's great to go into these schools and nonverbal kids will all of a sudden be interacting with the robot. And, it breaks your heart. It's a beautiful thing to see.
Right.
And then, we had a wonderful presentation at a hospital, which shall remain nameless, and Jeremy was there. And for hospitals, readmittance is a big issue. And the robot would go home with patients that just left for surgery, that got discharged, and the robot would be in the patient's home to remind them to take their medicine and, don't get out of bed, Joe, you just had surgery, et cetera, and then everything gets reported back remotely to a nurse. And so the robot is one of the most advanced humanoid robots in the world, and we were right in the middle of the presentation in front of the entire board, 15 people, and we were rocking and rolling, and unfortunately so was the table that the robot was on. Yeah. And the robot made one move and fell right off the table and unfortunately broke his leg,
right?
Which put a big damper on the whole presentation. And, that hospital has never called us back.
No, the beauty of technology, right, is like, what is it? Your probably your family or your parents will always tell you the more gadgets you have, the more likely something is to break, and that's but that's listen. This is the world we live in: is technology and making sure, especially in this case, that our kids are exposed to this kind of technology. So. Can
I go back to the STEM
side
for
ahead.
a second? One of the other things that the robot can do is it can teach students programming, and in some of the schools that have a special education population, they'll have the STEM or the computer science students programming the robot to customize it for the special education students. And then at the university level, the robots can be programmed in a very sophisticated manner to play soccer. And there's an annual Robo Cup competition where two teams of robots will play soccer against each other. And the amount of programming that goes into that is extremely advanced and extremely sophisticated. So there's a big application in STEM as well.
There's no joystick. They're not controlled. They are programmed to recognize the ball, to recognize their teammates. So the blue robots will only pass to the blue robots. The red will only pass to the red. The goalie actually dives for the ball. It's an amazing thing to watch. It's called RoboCup, and they have it. I think it's in Singapore. They hold this annually.
Really?
Universities get together and hold this competition.
Wow, that sounds like a potential scrimmage for my girls' team. If those robots make overlapping runs, then these girls aren't going to make the team again next year. And I'm taking a robot team with me.
Just don't break their legs when they're out there. The robots, not the girls.
Yeah, that could be right. We don't want to step on them either, right, Bill?
Exactly.
All right, cool. So we're actually coming up against a break again. But what I want to talk about when we get back is, listen, there's so much great technology and so many opportunities, but I think a lot of us would say, how do we get that into our schools? What do we do? How do we get the community involved? How do folks kind of speak up and say, hey, we need to get deeper into the wave of the future? As opposed to living in the dark ages of teaching to what the jobs used to be or what the workforce used to look like. I also want to give you both our magic wand so that you can make an impact and a difference in the world. And then, of course, we will let people know where they can learn more about leading engineering technologies and all the great stuff that you guys are dealing with every day. Cool?
Great.
Cool.
All right, awesome. Cheryl Matthews, Bill Reinhardt. Wake up with Jeremy Grunin. Listen to the news, then come back because we got more cool stuff to tell you about right after this.
The news is next. Live from the WOBM Newsroom, the Town Square, New Jersey News Network, and Fox News Radio. Wake up with Jeremy Grunin. News Talk Radio WOBM AM 1160 and 1310. Live from Town Square Towers at the heart of the Jersey Shore. Wake up with Jeremy Grunin. Get up, get out, do something. Join the conversation. 732-505-1160. News Talk Radio WOBM AM 1160 and 1310. Listen online at WOBMAM.com.
Hey, welcome back. Wake up with Jeremy Grunin. 6:32 a.m. Tuesday, May 17th, 54 degrees. Got up at 64 degrees today. 50% chance of rain. That's half in case you're doing the math at home. WOBM AM 1160 and 1310. News Talk Radio. Streaming live on the Radio Pup app and WOBMAM.com. 732-505-1160 if you want to join the conversation. We are talking with Cheryl Matthews and Bill Reinhardt from Leading Engineering Technologies. We're talking about STEM in the classroom. We're talking about robots in the classroom. All this great stuff, right? And I know that we have parents at home right now, because that is like our number one demographic listening to this show, right, is parents who are getting their kids who are right now cursing off their local school system, saying, why am I waking my child up at 5:45 in the morning to get them to school, right? And then they're saying, wait a second, all these cool STEM classrooms and robots and this and the other thing, and I don't have that in my school. How do we get the community involved? How do we get them up, get them out, and get them doing something to get people to mobilize here?
More often than not, you see that schools are employing STEM coordinators. So we reach out to them and try and see what they have currently and what needs they have. But the most important thing is it takes a community that's interested in it. STEM is not cheap to start any program in a school. So money's always an issue. But there's grants out there from the state, from the federal government. It's just taking the time to write the grants to get STEM in your schools. That is the number one roadblock that we find, obviously, and it's tough in New Jersey. We get that, but when the first answer is like, "Oh, we could never fund that. We can never do that. We don't have the budget for that," and my answer is, "This is not going to come out of your budget. It can't. You couldn't afford to do it out of your budget. This is something where you need to join with the community or join with a business that can support you." And a lot of businesses, like even New York, Corning is very involved in the schools in the Rochester area, and they're funding STEM labs for these schools.
That's a great point, Bill. And that's two of the trends that we're seeing in education right now are schools are forming partnerships with local industries. They're forming task force or industry advisory councils, and it's a win-win because sometimes the corporations will fund the programs for the school or at least part of it, and then the companies benefit because the schools will turn out workers with the skill sets that they need. The second trend is crowd fundraising. We had a Catholic school in the Midwest fund their smart lab by setting up a crowd fundraising website, and they received donations. The kids sent letters out to aunts and uncles and grandparents across the country, and people joined in. And on this crowdfunding website, they raised the $150,000, $200,000 that they needed for the smart lab for their school. So there are many, many different options out there, and parent and community involvement is key. PTOs, education foundations, et cetera.
And the important thing is, where are the jobs? Liberal arts is it's a great major, but it's not producing a workforce that STEM is. I mean, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about career readiness or college readiness. What's the statistic? It's growing at 17% employment from STEM occupations, while others are growing at just 9%.
Right.
So we're not just talking let your kids have fun in school. We're talking prepare them for college and careers, because that's where the jobs are. There's schools. There's businesses in Eatontown, New Jersey. They advertised for code writers for months for 6 positions. They couldn't fill those positions. Right. So it just shows a lack in the workforce skills.
Well, and in the Monmouth Ocean County area, we have one of the biggest employers in the state is the Joint Base, and those are engineering jobs.
Yes.
Right, and those are STEM-based jobs, and those jobs are going to kids that aren't Monmouth Ocean County kids, because these kids aren't necessarily graduating with the right tools in their tool belt, and it's a shame because it should be And we've talked about this, Bill. It should be the really the European model, where in Germany, for example, business tells the schools what they need. This is the curriculum you should be developing so that you can create kids with the skill sets that we need for the jobs that we have, and that are high-paying jobs that we're not talking about a $15 an hour minimum wage. We're talking about these are $60,000, $80,000, $100,000 jobs, right?
Right.
So you're saying, Bill, it would be much more advantageous to have that kind of skill set than like your old school like English major or something like that.
Yeah,
Right?
leave my daughter out of this, Jeremy. All right.
All right, sorry. It just seems so easy to go down that road. Moving right along, moving swiftly forward. So listen, one of the things that we do here on Wake Up with Jeremy Grunin, and we may have just gotten a little bit of foreshadowing, is we like to give you guys a magic wand. Some fairy dust, some pixie dust, just wiggle your nose and make something happen, make a change, regardless of funding, regardless of public support, quote unquote. What would you do? What would you change? What would you make an impact on?
Well, one of the things that I would like is I would like every student to know that they have the ability to learn. Some students don't succeed in school because maybe they have a learning disability or they learn differently than other students. In the Smart Lab, we have the philosophy that there is no failure. Sometimes we learn something that doesn't work and we have to try again, but there's no failure in the Smart Lab. And one of the outcomes of a Smart Lab is that the academic classroom teachers are saying that after their student has experienced projects in the Smart Lab, they're asking more relevant and more engaging questions in the academic class. So the Smart Lab experience is setting up students to succeed in all areas. And I would love every student to know that they have the ability to learn in their own way.
Cool.
My magic wand?
Yeah.
Besides the Buffalo Bills winning a Super Bowl someday.
Come on, you had like 17 chances at it in a row.
I know. I would really like to see STEM be a regular class, like English, like math, like science, and make it part of a school's curriculum so that it's a no-brainer. Of course, we have a STEM program, and it's for kids of all learning abilities. That would be my wish for schools.
And listen, let's be fair. From a we can talk park, we could talk Common Core, all the all of the buzzwords that make parents and actually administrators at this point cringe a little bit. But these are not difficult concepts to tie into what core curriculum really is about, right? Because it is about math, science, and technology. And so this is not like a leap to try and like shoehorn STEM learning into schools, right? I mean, this is a natural progression.
Exactly. And the foundation or the basis of Park and Common Core is teaching the higher or wanting students to achieve the higher level order of thinking and critical thinking and problem solving. So this fits right in with that. What we're trying to do with the STEM Lab is take students from schooling, where they're told what to think, to learning, where they're taught how to think.
Right.
And
I like that. That was nice.
Yeah, she's good, right?
That was strong.
She's the brains of the
That's
outfit.
why she goes to like England and New Orleans. And
exactly.
You're here.
And I'm in Pennsylvania.
That's all right. No
right. The other thing that's great about the Smart Lab is it meets all Common Core and Next Gen standards. And so with our curriculum, if you have to, if you need to meet an Earth Science standard, you'll type in that whatever project they want to learn, and it will give you a list of all the standards that are met within that Smart Lab. So it can coincide with school's curriculum flawlessly.
So, guys, where could folks go to learn more about these products, about these offerings, and where can they kind of build an arsenal so that they can have deeper conversations with their schools about how they can get it in their buildings?
Sure. We have a website. Our website is just www.learning. Or sorry, I'm getting that wrong already.
How do you spell
Leading. www.leadingengineeringtechnologies.com. I know it's kind of long, but leadingengineeringtechnologies.com. And from there, you can link to our STEM partners. There's a link for Creative Learning Systems on the website. There's a link to the robot and to a couple of other companies that we have that are participants in STEM education.
Very, very cool. All right. Cheryl Matthews, Bill Reinhardt. Leading Engineering Technologies. That's www.leadingengineeringtechnologies.com. Thank you so much for spending some time with us bright and early this morning and for dropping some STEM knowledge on me and our listeners. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jeremy.
It's a pleasure.
You guys have a great day. And we'll be back with more Wake Up with Jeremy Grunin right after this.